experienced before. I was a young man, and one night I had a dream, which immediately from the time it started, I was struck by how different it was from any other dream I'd ever had. This dream was completely vivid. It was just unlike anything I'd experienced before. Um, it was as if I was really there, really seeing everything as if I was right there in person. And as the dream began, I found myself in this massive room, almost floating up above. I was looking down from up towards the ceiling, kind of a bird's eye view. And it was this massive room that kind of looked like a huge hallway, or even at the time, what came to mind was like the huge lobby of an office building, or like the lobby of a big commercial skyscraper, in a downtown city. Everything was very modern. There was lots of glass and chrome, and like on one wall was just entirely made of windows, like to the outside. And then the only difference was that it was way longer than the lobby of any conceivable office building. It just seemed to go on and on forever. And so on the right side, there was a wall made completely of windows, letting in light from the outside, and there was all these people in white robes who were quietly filing in from the outside. I'm sitting there watching them calmly standing in these single file lines, coming in from the right and walking to the left. And the sight of these white robed people really startled me, because even as the dream was occurring, the significance of what the white robed throng of people, what that really meant, in terms of what it says in the book of Revelation, was not actually, was not lost on me. And then suddenly I found myself standing in the middle of one of these lines. And I looked down at myself, and I saw that I was also wearing one of these white robes. And there was all these armed guards monitoring the lines of people, but they didn't seem to be needing to use force or coercion or anything to keep the people moving along. And I was really amazed at the amount of calm just present in the whole scene. There was hundreds, if not thousands, of people moving willingly into this building. And eventually, as I moved along with the line myself, I saw what the line was approaching. Each line terminated at a massive steel box-shaped machine. Each machine had a little stepladder leading up to a hatch on the front. And one by one, the people in the white robes would walk up the ladder and crawl inside. When I reached the front of the line, I was just astonished to find myself calmly and willingly walking up the ladder, just like everyone else had done. I was doing this totally aware of myself and present to myself, and yet in the dream, had this sense of doing something without understanding why. I had a deep sense of foreboding about the whole scenario and about these steel machines, and yet at the same time, I wasn't fighting it. I wasn't trying to run. I wasn't even making a sound. I walked up the ladder, and the hatch was opened, and I crawled inside. Inside the hatch on the front of the machine, I found myself on my hands and knees and crawling down a very narrow passageway. The walls and ceiling and floor were all made of what looked like stainless steel, but other than that, it was featureless. I began to crawl forward, and then I saw that the little tunnel opened up into a small room where it was a little bit bigger, but not big enough to stand. And there was actually someone else in there with me, someone who I had known kind of as an acquaintance, but honestly, I was kind of surprised because it was a person that I didn't like very much at the time. So I was really confused what they were doing there. But then shortly after seeing this guy in this little chamber with me, my attention was turned away from him and then back to my own situation. And suddenly I could sense that there was something going on. I couldn't hear anything or see anything change because I was just in this steel box. But there was a sense somehow that the machine had been turned on. So I held up my hands in front of my face, and I watched as the flesh on my hands, my arms started to bubble and melt. I was absolutely horrified at the sight of my own body looking like it was just being cooked before my eyes, even though I couldn't feel any pain. And then I woke up, drenched in sweat. So, why am I even talking about this? Well, it's interesting because over the past few months, as I've been making these videos and interacting with lots of different people and talking about flat earth cosmology and the Bible and the New World Order and deception, last days deception, and all these various topics, the topic of fear is one that comes up quite a bit. And it comes up in a number of different contexts and from several different angles, actually. So there's kind of a lot to talk about when it comes to fear. But the thing about this dream was that at the time I had it, I mean, I woke up and it absolutely terrified me, and I thought it was extremely strange. But for the most part, I pretty much forgot about it, or just kind of pushed it out of my mind. I never actually forgot about it, but I just, I didn't know what to think about it, so I didn't. And then fast forward over a decade later, when I'm grown and just living life, until that fateful day when I stumble across information about Building 7 and the 9/11 being an inside job, which of course stems into the whole New World Order agenda, learning about Bohemian Grove and the Bilderbergs and the Trilateral Commission and the CFR and the Rockefellers and the whole 9 yards. And I'm just devouring it up. I couldn't believe that all this. I never heard of any of this stuff. I'm just digging in, just trying to understand how it all fits together, and trying to understand it all in the context of Bible prophecy, because I had actually grown up, being taught about the Book of Revelation and the Mark of the Beast and these things and things like this. But like a lot of people, I was taught that basically all that scary stuff was going to unfold after the church was raptured up, and then the Antichrist would then suddenly come on the scene and take over the world and do all these atrocious things and be beheading people, and it's the whole Left Behind narrative. But I soon began to realize, both from mainly from just what the Bible itself says, that this is not what it describes happening. This whole pre-trib rapture, being the thing that just triggers everything else. And as I'm learning more about how there's just this whole worldwide conspiracy that goes back, not just generations and generations or centuries and centuries, but goes all the way back to Babylon, goes all the way back to Nimrod, and then even back before that goes back to the fallen watchers and Satan's original rebellion in heaven. And this whole conspiracy is just one big long thread that traces through all of history. And as I'm just learning more about all the things that are going on today, when you're reading about things like the idea of martial law being declared and FEMA camps and things like this, I started learning about all the weird stuff at the Denver airport. And it was at that point where I started to get really freaked out. I won't lie to you, I really went through a very difficult time of just real serious anxiety and fear, and not even knowing what to think or what to believe. Where am I going to go? And when I was learning about the Denver airport, that was when I really started to think back to that dream that I had had all those years ago, and started to really wonder if what I had seen wasn't just some symbolic dream, but if it was really some kind of genuine, peek at a future event. And yeah, I really struggled and I really wrestled, because I'm learning all this stuff and going, yep, this is undeniably real. The world is not what I thought it was. And just trying to absorb all that and digest it, and everything you thought you knew is kind of being taken apart, and you're trying to piece it all back together. But I was genuinely afraid. And I think the hardest part was I was going, God, if that dream I had all those years ago really was showing me my death, then what is the purpose of that? Why would you do that? Of all the things you could show me, or all the things that you could reveal, why would you just show me being executed along with all these other people? And I'm thinking about my family, and I'm thinking about, all the plans and hopes that I had had, and how everything just was kind of in a big spin of uncertainty. And, it was really rough. I honestly felt like I was going crazy. I started, writing about it and researching things more, and just, at times it just felt so dark. It just felt so oppressive. And the more you learn, I'm learning about things like the Panopticon and the NSA spying grid, and all these things, and I'm just suddenly just bathed in fear. And you start questioning yourself and thinking, well, maybe I'm not, of course everyone, you already know that everyone will just think you're paranoid, and you probably need medication or therapy. And I personally really started spiraling back into old addictions, and just drinking and getting stoned, and all sorts of things, just to not deal with the anxiety and the fear. And looking back just on those, this is just in the last 5-6 years, there were some really heavy times, where I look back and I go, I don't know how I got through all that, and I'm still here and still functioning. But honestly, it was really just because of the goodness and faithfulness of God, and He never let go of me, even when I didn't necessarily feel that He was there, or didn't appreciate what He was walking me through with all these things. I still, to this day, I don't know if this dream was literally some prophetic vision of some literal future event, or if it's just, was some sort of symbolic representation of enduring persecution in general, or what. But it was when I finally started diving into all this flat earth research, those fleshly fears of, this encroaching system, this antichrist system. I don't even know how to explain it, how feeble and how small it all seems now. Like it's 90% just smoke and mirrors, and yes, I'm not saying that I don't believe that there's, real legitimate things being done all over the place on all sorts of levels. They're pumping poisons into the sky and the water and the food and the land. But when you see the extent to which they have gone to try and wipe God out of the picture, the sovereign creator, the one who will judge the living and the dead at the end of history, they're just telling themselves a fairy tale. They're just lying to themselves, thinking that by joining Lucifer in his rebellion against God, that they actually have any shot at succeeding. The fear being pushed on you by the systems of this world is the complete opposite of the fear of God. The Bible says that the fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. And it's really true. Fear God does not mean to live in fear. I lived in fear. I know what that's like. But I wasn't fearing God, I was fearing man. When I began to fear God, meaning that I began to realize that He was the one who